Alright, y'all, what's up? Um, so this is a bit different video today because if you know you're watching me on YouTube, you see Tricky Bean 15, you think, he streams, he just puts out random videos about life, his politics, music, this kind of thing. But something I haven't really talked about much is sports. Now, I'm a huge college football fan, alright? College football is my number one sport, and I love it. Okay, I love college football. I've followed college football since I was 9 years old. I can remember, the first game I cried over. So just I love college football. Okay, I also follow NFL and NHL a little bit, as well as college basketball. But really, college football is my thing, man. So with that being said, I'd like to put out a different video today. Kind of going over the 2020 season and giving my perspective on it, because I don't really think that I've done that so far. So so 2020 was a weird year. We know that. Started off, we didn't think we would get a college football season. Okay, I remember back in August, I think it was, when everyone was like, "Oh gosh, we're gonna get football," um, and I saw a report that college football was expected to be canceled across the board in the next 18 hours. That was, I don't know, it was like August 18th or something when I read that news report. The MAC had already canceled their season. So I saw that and I was like, oh gosh, man, this fall's going to be awful because we're not going to have college football. And I don't know what to do, but um, and then it wasn't, thankfully, except for in a couple of conferences, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 voted to keep college football for the fall, but the Big 10, the Pac-12, Mountain West, and the MAC, I think, off the top of my head, those are the ones that I can remember that canceled outright. Said, we're not playing this fall, okay, till things get better. Okay. Obviously, those decisions were reversed, and the Big Ten came back, Pac-12 came back, all these conferences came back and played their seasons for the most part, although a lot of games got canceled. And look, everyone has different opinions about COVID-19. I get it. Okay. I myself have really been, mentally just struggling with how to think about this pandemic. Okay. But the Big Ten and Pac-12, they made a mistake. Okay. They should have started playing right off. I mean, it's not like the first game off, we had 1,000 coronavirus cases, within each team. Like, that just didn't happen. Okay. The games were pretty safe. I mean, I think they did a good job. I think the NCAA did a good job of regulating, stadium capacity and protocols and stuff like that. But I mean, when you think about it, this is kind of a side note, but you got players tackling each other, but and the coaches in close proximity to the players basically all the time. But you see the coaches having to wear masks. And the players wearing masks on the sidelines sometimes. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I mean, I don't think it's really necessary. Okay, but that's just me. That's just common guy looking at this. But I'll be honest. I've had the virus. Okay, I had it in October into September. It wasn't fun for a couple days, but really I got over it. So. That's a side note. I'm going to get past all that, but not needless to say, but all that being said, they did a good job with the protocols, okay? They did what was necessary. I don't think that, like I said, the Big Ten and Pac-12 should have canceled. They should have just, gone forward. It's a bunch of politics and, I guess, people in favor of shutdowns rule the area, I'll say. Without getting into the politics of it, but people who like shutdowns and everything, they are in those areas. They run those universities, that kind of thing. So, um, that being said, Big 12 started their season. ACC started the season. Started off great. SEC started a little bit later. Then we're like, man, really feels like college football season. Um, and it just with how each conference played out, it just sucks. The fact that some teams didn't get to play as many games because either their conference or because they had cases themselves that canceled a bunch of games. Which kind of brings me to my next point. Okay, the Big Ten really, with Ohio State. Okay, the Big Ten obviously made a mistake. I've talked about that, but Ohio State, man, was fighting to get recognition. Okay, and they had a bunch of their games canceled. The Big Ten had a rule where you basically you had to play 6 of your games to play for the conference championship, and then they changed that rule when Ohio State could not play 6 of their games, so that Ohio State could get in the playoff. Really, that's people would say that's sketchy and stuff, but I really just applaud the Big Ten for basically changing the rules and not being too stingy. A lot of people thought it was Big Ten's dirty and all this, but looking back, hindsight, after these playoff games have been played, I just think that, letting Ohio State prove themselves was the best decision. Okay, and you look at the playoff, and a lot of people are saying, okay, so the 4 teams were Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Okay, a lot of people are saying, oh, Texas A&M deserved to get in, oh, Cincinnati deserved to get in, Oklahoma, all these teams that had an argument for the playoff. They certainly had an argument, but in the end, they picked Notre Dame as the 4th spot. The top 3 were pretty. I'd say the top 3 were kind of a lock. A lot of people say Ohio State shouldn't have got in, but you see that Ohio State played 6 games this year, including their conference championship. 6 games leading into the playoff. Clemson played 11. Alabama played 11. Notre Dame also played 11. So you get these teams that have played more games to prove themselves. You got Ohio State over here who's played 6 games. How does that look? Doesn't look great for Ohio State. Okay, and a lot of their games have not been very impressive. Okay, Ohio State played Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. They were behind at halftime. They had to come back and win the game. Texas A&M. They were fighting for recognition, even though, their one loss came to Alabama early in the season, but they lost by 28 points. Are you really going to be able to compete with Alabama in the playoff? Okay. When you have only beaten 2 teams in the SEC with a winning record. Then again, a lot of teams don't have winning records this year with all the conference play, but I'm just gonna, I like to be unbiased on this channel, but I'm just gonna say I'm an Auburn fan. Okay, that's where my allegiance lies. I'm an Auburn fan. I'm an SEC guy. So from my perspective, Auburn lost. Auburn did not have a great season. Okay, Auburn got blown out by our biggest rivals, Georgia and Alabama, and then had a horrible loss against South Carolina, who ended up being 2-8 or something, had an awful record at the end. And then they also lost to, who was it? Texas A&M. Obviously they have a pretty good season. And then just lost to Northwestern in the bowl game, which Northwestern's not a bad team, but Auburn hadn't had a great season. They fired Gus Malzahn, their head coach, and hired Brian Harsin from Boise State. I think it's a good hire, but we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about the whole season, and putting my biases aside, a lot of people think 2020 weird season. kind of a throwaway season for a lot of teams. So that being said, you had teams that were trying to get in the playoff, but at the same time, they might have opted out of a bowl game. Minnesota opted out of a bowl game. A lot of players opting out of their team's respective bowl games for the NFL draft and whatnot. So, just not a lot of respect for this season. But, I get it, because not a lot of fans in the stands and just not a lot of hype around it. And, the potential of games getting canceled, it's just, it's just an awful situation. I mean, I hope that 2021 is going to be a normal season, okay? I have no idea what's going on with this virus. Vaccines out now, supposedly. Don't know if it's going to get better by August. Don't know what it'll look like, but I'm just hoping for a better season than 2020. More fans, more hype around the stadium. Yeah, so. And for me, going to the games, going to the Auburn games, they were fun this year. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were fun, but it'd be a lot more fun with 87,000 people in Jordan Hare Stadium, let me tell you that. So let's talk about the bowl season. We had some good bowl games this year. So we had, obviously, the playoff semifinals. So, Rose Bowl had Alabama and Notre Dame. Sugar Bowl, Ohio State and Clemson. And the Peach Bowl with Cincinnati and Georgia. And we had the Cotton Bowl with Oklahoma and Florida. Okay? Let's talk about the latter first. So, Oklahoma destroyed Florida. I mean, wow. Florida had 3 losses going in. They lost to Alabama by a possession. They lost to LSU, awful, horrible loss, which was also by 1 possession. And Texas A&M, they lost by, you guessed it, 1 possession. So, they were a 3-loss team, but pretty favored by the committee, all told. So, going into this, Florida had a chance to win. They were probably favored to win. I don't know the spread, but gosh, I can't believe how just absolutely destroyed Florida was. Of course, they were missing a lot of players, but Oklahoma, I mean, that really says a lot about Oklahoma, how hot this team is right now. I mean, this is actually their first bowl win under Lincoln Riley, if I believe. Unless the Sugar Bowl in 2016 was with Lincoln. But this is their first bowl win in forever. I mean, they've got to feel good about that. I mean, especially going into next season. Spencer Rattler's a redshirt freshman. They've got to feel good about that team. I mean, kind of sucks because they were the Big 12 conference champions, but they lost those 2 games early in the season. Kansas State and Iowa State. Although they did avenge their Iowa State loss, the committee probably looked at that 2-loss. Keep them out of the playoff. No 2-loss team in the playoff. Well, I think they could have kept up with Alabama. I mean, if Florida kept up with Alabama, then with all their players and Oklahoma destroyed them, they could have probably kept up with Alabama. I mean, obviously we don't know, but you could have seen them as an argument for number 4 instead of Notre Dame. Peach Bowl, we had Georgia and Cincinnati. So, you guys know I'm an Auburn fan. I hate Georgia. But, Cincinnati was ahead 21-10. Okay. Looked very convincing for Cincinnati. And then, of course, Georgia came back, kicked the field goal to win and then got the safety at the end. That's weird. But, Georgia ended up winning, coming back. Very impressive comeback for them. I just switched my screens. So, anyway, very impressive comeback for them. But still, I mean, even though Georgia won, Cincinnati lost. But Cincinnati kept up with Georgia. Georgia, who's in the SEC, a Power 5 team, who had 2 losses and was ranked in the top 10. Cincinnati was undefeated and was also in the top 10. So you really got to think, Group of 5 has probably earned some respect by now. And if Cincinnati runs the table next year, they really deserve a spot in the playoff. I'm just going to say it right now. Okay. they really deserve consideration for the playoff. Um, Now, will they be able to keep up with Alabama? I don't know. Probably not. But you got to at least consider them for the playoff if that's how they played this year. And they got a lot of guys coming back. I don't know. But so, gosh, I've been on this forever. But anyway, so what other games were there? Okay, so now we get to the playoffs. Okay, Rose Bowl in Texas. We had Alabama, Notre Dame. Alabama, of course, won convincingly. Although the spread was 19.5 points and Notre Dame covered. So the final score was 31-14? Something like that. So Notre Dame did cover, which was kind of impressive. Of course, they had the touchdown at the end, which, I don't know, they were just probably, playing for, good vibes, whatnot. But, they did cover. Of course, Notre Dame, kind of a old-fashioned offense. They could not keep up with the explosiveness of Alabama's offense. Not at all. And so, obviously, Devontae Smith had 3 touchdowns. And he won Rose Bowl MVP, and he's a Heisman candidate, which we'll get to in a second. But Alabama just obviously impressed like they always do. Of course, Notre Dame's defense, held Alabama to 31 points, which is, I can't remember if they scored that low this season. Their points per game were 49 or something. You got to give props to Notre Dame's defense for at least putting up a fight and holding them to 4 touchdowns. Which sounds crazy, but Alabama's just been putting up points on everybody this season, and Notre Dame allowed only 31 points. So you got to give them props. So overall, I'm kind of impressed with Notre Dame's performance in this game, even though Alabama was just obviously leagues ahead of them, and their leagues ahead of everybody. But now, last but absolutely not least, save the best for last. Sugar Bowl, Ohio State, Clemson. Now I talked about Ohio State earlier. They're fighting for respect. They had that game last year. They had some calls not go their way. If you remember that, Justin Ross catch that was called a fumble, but then an incomplete pass in that game. That really turned the tide for that game. And if that had gone Ohio State's way, they probably would have won. So you got to think, they have been fighting for that all year. They've been thinking about that all year. They had to fight to play football. Ohio State was one of the teams that wanted to play football in the Big Ten. When the Big Ten canceled football, they were fighting to get football back. Justin Fields, posted, SMH ... tweeted that, when the Big Ten announced that they were canceling the season. Of course, they brought it back, but let's see. Well, that's about the game. Oh, yeah. And so, obviously, they only played 6 games. Did not look like the team they were last year in those games. Of course, they didn't have a chance to prove themselves, but for 6 games, and they underperformed a little bit. So, they were disrespected by pretty much everyone, including Clemson's head coach, Dabo Swinney. He ranks them number 11 in his top 25. I don't know. But they were ranked number 11 in Dabo's poll, and you gotta know they take it personally. Ohio State was probably livid at that. Absolutely livid at the disrespect that they had, and I'll just say it. They proved everyone wrong last night. I'm recording this on January 2nd, so still some bowl games we played, but so last night was New Year's Day, and Ohio State just lit it up, man. They absolutely impressed me, impressed everybody. How could you not be impressed by that performance? Clemson destroyed Notre Dame in their rematch in the ACC Championship. Avenge that loss. And you gotta look at it and say, man, Ohio State not looking good going to this game, that was all a moral thing. Or that was all a mental thing. Fighting for recognition this year, as well as avenging last year's loss, insane. Justin Fields, although he underperformed this year, looked like the best player in the nation last night. Absolutely. Threw 6 touchdowns and had 5 incompletions. Y'all fact check me on that, but he had more touchdowns than interceptions at one point. Excuse me, more touchdowns than incompletions at one point. This dude was insane. And do you remember that pass? That 56-yard pass? Touchdown pass to Chris Olave? Oh, that was... I saw that, I was like, he deserves to win the Heisman because of that pass. Oh, that was beautiful. And the fact that he was coming back from an injury or something, like he was like wincing on the sidelines and stuff, like, man, he really wanted this game. I mean, and so did the rest of that team, man. Trey Sermon looked amazing. Lit up that Clemson defense. Also, on the other side of the ball, like, Clemson's offense did not play bad. I mean, they played very good, but Ohio State's defense, first of all, the offense did enough to take the pressure off the defense, but the defense really held their ground and, forced like 3 fumbles from Trevor Lawrence. Although I think Trevor Lawrence really played well in this game overall. And I hope he, we'll get to the Heisman discussion in a minute, but he's in there. And, gosh, Ohio State looked amazing last night. And I just can't say enough how excited I am for this national championship coming up with Alabama and Ohio State. You got to think Ohio State's going to be riding this wave. I mean, you got to think they're going to be riding this exciting victory. And I don't know. I think they might have a chance against Alabama. I mean, I still think Alabama will probably win the national championship just by how impressive they're playing. Their offense is the best that pretty much anyone's ever seen. I mean, obviously Ohio State will be underdogs in this game, but you got to think, Ohio State might have a chance. I mean, so don't be surprised if Ohio State pulls this one. But at the same time, Alabama's just so good. I mean, I don't know who can compete with them. I mean, nobody really has this year. I think Ole Miss kind of did. Like, wow. You got to think Ole Miss competed with Alabama. Like, that was the closest anyone got to beating Alabama this year. Well, I mean, Georgia was a good game, but in the end, Alabama really pulled away in the second half. So, moving on from that. So, Ohio State's looking very hot right now. I think Justin Fields is the best player in the nation right now. Obviously, he's not in that Heisman discussion because you have to look at the whole year. But we have 4 Heisman candidates in the top 4, obviously. That's very redundant. But our top 4 is Devontae Smith, Mac Jones. Not in any order, but Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, both at Alabama. Trevor Lawrence, QB at Clemson. And then Kyle Trask, which is Florida's quarterback. Kyle Trask, I'm just going to say he looked very good this entire season. Okay, very good, except for all those losses. Not all those losses, but those losses that Florida had. He looked good in every other game. I mean, playing like the best player in the nation. You have to have good receivers in order for a quarterback to really shine, but I don't think he really helped out. He was helped out by anybody. I mean, any one person or anything, but he made some good throws, man. But it's unfortunate. He throws 3 interceptions in the first quarter against Oklahoma. Wow, that game. If the voting had not occurred before that, then he would have lost that immediately. Like, no way he would win now. Obviously, he's probably still not going to win because against Alabama, I don't know. He played pretty good against Alabama. But overall, I think the other 3 candidates have more of a chance to win this thing. Devontae Smith. Oh, my goodness. Incredible. I'm so impressed by this man. Like, I mean, Alabama has 5 stars basically in every position, okay? And they have, like, a bunch of 5 stars at wide receiver. Have had them for couple years now. But Devontae Smith is just something else. Like, speechless. I just don't know how to describe what an athlete this man is. He's fast. He can catch. in the end zone when other receivers probably couldn't reach their hands in there and catch him. And his yards after catch is just insane. Um, so if I had to pick a winner, I'd say that he should win this thing. Um, he'd be only the second wide receiver in history to win the Heisman, but I really think he deserves it. I mean, he has definitely proven himself this year. Um, and, I mean, next candidate, Mac Jones. I mean, he is Devontae Smith's quarterback this year. But, I mean, there's nothing really spectacular about Mac Jones, I don't think. I mean, I talked about Kyle Trask really not being helped out by his wide receivers too much, but Mac Jones has 5 stars at wide receivers, and, they run the routes, and he gets it to him. I mean, he does his job, but he's nothing really spectacular, I don't think. We have some good quarterbacks in the country, really. But he's not one of the spectacular. He's not on the same level as Justin Fields or a Trevor Lawrence or a Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, he's just not on that level yet. Or I guess if he's a senior, well, he's not that. He's not there. Okay, we'll just say that. So I would think that he's not the best candidate. He's not really anything spectacular. He gets the job done. I mean, he doesn't make any tight throws. I mean, his wide receivers all get open, and he throws them for a 69-yard touchdown pass. I mean, the Devontae Smith, those guys make it easy, really. And then our last candidate, Trevor Lawrence. He's really gotten better. I mean, the dude's a winner. I don't know what else I can say about him, except he's a winner. Okay. He's lost 2 games in his career now as a starter. Those 2 games were against Ohio State and LSU last year. And he is basically, this is the first year he's not gotten to a championship. And he's the first true freshman to win a national championship or something. I don't know, something like that. And so, gosh, I mean, he is so good. Like, he has really started to run the ball this year. I mean, you didn't really see that from him in the past, but he started to run the ball this year, and he's looked good doing it. For real. He's not slow. I mean, he looks like he's nimble. I mean, he looks really good running the football. That's what you look for in a player, that could possibly go to the NFL is, how can you improve? How can you be developed in your career? And he has certainly developed as a runner, but also as a passer. I mean, last year he threw some interceptions and stuff, but, that happens to every quarterback. But this year he's looked so good. Lit up Notre Dame's defense. I haven't watched much of his games this year, but he's played a lot better this year. So, in overall, I think that Devontae Smith should win the Heisman. Of course, it's not my decision. I don't even vote, of course, but I think he should win the Heisman. I think he's the most qualified. And I'm excited for this national championship coming up and the rest of these bowl games. So I guess that's it for me. That's all my discussion on the 2020 season. Let me know if you want me to do more of these, because I love college football, but I also love video games. I also love music and that kind of thing that I do on my YouTube channel. So just let me know what you want me to do. Let me know if you really like this content, if I am smart or whatever, or if I should start a podcast. I don't think I'll do that, but if you want me to make more videos about college football, then let me know. If not, just, I don't know, don't say anything or something. Be like, hey, I really like your video game content. Very passive-aggressively, you can do that. But, I'll look at my screen, Lucky PC7 on Twitch and Steam. If you want to add me on Steam, we can play some games on there. Obviously on YouTube. But you can also add me on Xbox at TrickyBean15. I guess that's it. So let me know if you want more college football content. And looking forward to the rest of this season. And yeah, y'all have a great rest of your day. And bye.